You have to leave. Uh, sounds like everyone heard that. So if you're unable to stick with us throughout the entire data jam, we will be making this available on the city's website a few days from now. So let's get started. The partners that you're going to be interacting with today are listed on the screen here. We've got the City of Minneapolis, Center for Energy and Environment, also located in Minneapolis, and the two main utilities in the city, CenterPoint Energy and Xcel Energy. As far as our agenda today, we're going to kind of give you some background on the benchmarking policy as well as the evaluation policy that affects large buildings in the city, and we'll give kind of a basic overview of how benchmarking works and what's the value of it. And our goal is to give you enough break times throughout the session. We know that 4 hours is a lot of time, and no one can sit here for 4 hours comfortably. So we're going to try to break about every hour, just a little bit before the hour. So that first break will be at around 8:50. At 9, we'll really dive into the doing the work and putting data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager, the city's tool for benchmarking. We'll go through how to set up a property, how to set up a water meter. We're actually going to touch on how to do the data submission at that time, just so that you know how to do that. You won't have the data yet fully to be able to submit, but I think that'll be an appropriate time to do that. We'll have another break, and then at 10, we'll invite over Xcel and CenterPoint to present on their data transfer tools that will significantly streamline the process for getting data into your portfolio manager properties. And then at 11, we're kind of going to have an open help time, so that, if you have bigger problems, and typically that what we've seen is that there are more detailed questions around the CenterPoint and Xcel data transfer, or you might have some issues with how to configure this low and high water meter components. If you run into any situation or questions like that, please put that in the chat. And for bigger issues, we'll suggest that we hang on to those and address those in that kind of bigger breakout time. After we enter that more informal time, we won't be coming back together as a group. But we highly encourage you to utilize that time to and all of the staff resources that are here right now to get as much done as possible. That being said, if you do have small questions, kind of little one-off things throughout the presentation, again, feel free to put that in the chat. And where we can, Brady and Kelsey will be putting you into breakout rooms with the staff support here to help you address those, and then we'll get you back into the flow of things. Getting back to introductions. So as I was saying, I'm Katie Jones. I'm with the Center for Energy and Environment, and I'll be leading most of the presentation today. And I'm joined by Brady Steigoff from the Center for Energy and Environment. And then Nadia, you want to introduce your team at the City of Minneapolis?
Yep, I'm here today with Kelsey Myers, my colleague, and morning everyone. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach us out. We also manage the city's energy benchmarking helpline. So we have a dedicated email address and a phone number. So if you have any questions today or in the future, feel free to reach out to us. And again, the email address and the phone number, you will see that in the notice and also on our website. So welcome.
Thank you, Nadia. And I do want to note that Brady just put that information into the chat. So on your bar, for your control bar, you should have just seen like an orange flashing flag. So hopefully now you can see where the chat is. Okay, so later on this morning, Patrick Schmitz will be joining us with a couple of members of his team. And then Emma, I think I saw that you're here. If you want to introduce you and the people will be helping you on the CenterPoint side.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm Inga Bretson here. I'm a program administrator at CenterPoint Energy. We'll have at least 2 other folks joining us a bit later, and I think Mark Brown might already be on the call, but Mark Brown is from our from Accelerated Innovations, who is the developer that we CenterPoint engaged to build our tool. And then we'll also have, I believe, Emma Shoppy from CenterPoint Energy. And Mark, was there anyone else from AI that was joining?
Mitch is available. Yeah, I can pull him in.
Okay, so we'll have a few folks to help out with any questions. Look forward to it.
Great, thank you. So this is all to say you guys should all be in good hands. We've got a lot of people on deck to help you this morning. I do want to apologize. There's construction going on outside of my home, so if you hear random sawing, that is why. So why are we here today? We're here to help you comply with the city's benchmarking policy and to show the value that benchmarking can have on energy management. And at the end of the day, the purpose of this is to help you save energy, helps you save money, and helps you, reprioritize dollars to other areas of your business. So I'm going to turn it over to Nadia to give an overview of the benchmarking program.
Thank you, Katie. All right. Again, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. So as you know, energy benchmarking is an ordinance-driven program, and the name of the city's policy is Commercial and Multifamily Building Rating and Disclosure Ordinance. The intention of this policy is to bring awareness of energy efficiency in large commercial and multifamily residential building sector, and also to motivate owners to do energy efficiency improvements. Next slide, please. So what is benchmarking? We are all familiar with the Energy Star label for appliances. Benchmarking is essentially the same thing, but it is for the buildings. Benchmarking allows us to compare the efficiency of a building to those that are just like it and have a similar property type. So it kind of does the peer comparison. Next one, please. So the policy has 2 major components in it, benchmarking and transparency. As the old saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. So benchmarking is the ongoing review of buildings' energy and water performance over time, and as I said before, relative to its peers. When we compare the building's energy and water use data with other building characteristics, we get a whole building energy matrix. And these metrics are known as Energy Star score if the building is eligible to receive it, or otherwise every building should receive an energy use intensity or an EUI. These metrics can be used to compare buildings to one another. So the other component, transparency, is related to the release or the public disclosure of the whole building performance metrics, which the city fulfill by publishing that data on the website and on the property level information page. Next, please. So who does the policy affect? The policy affects all commercial and multifamily residential buildings that are at least 50,000 square feet and or greater in area. Buildings in these categories need to annually benchmark their energy and water consumption data and report it to the city by June 1st every year. Next, please. So here you see the path we have today. For commercial properties, benchmarking actually started in 2013. In 2019, the city added multifamily buildings after a natural gas data aggregation tool was created by CenterPoint Energy. This allows an easy compliance pathway for multifamily properties. You will hear more about the CenterPoint Energy and Xcel Energy's benchmarking tools later in this presentation. All types of buildings are required to report their energy data, as I mentioned earlier, by June 1st every year. But we will discuss ways to file for an exemption or extension if necessary due to the COVID-19 related situation this year. Next, please. So here's a snapshot of the 2018 commercial building results. As I mentioned earlier, commercial buildings have been benchmarking for several years now, starting in 2013. And as you can see, the results from the benchmarking are positive. We have a very high response rate. In 2018, it's almost 93% compared to other cities nationally. Over 462 buildings are analyzed annually, and we are seeing reduction in energy and greenhouse gas data. Minneapolis is even recognized nationally for its high-performing buildings, with energy benchmarking being one of the many reasons why the city has an abundance of energy efficiency buildings. And as you can see here, Minneapolis is the top 5 office in the markets. Here's a historical phase in for the commercial buildings. Here we can see that city led the way and benchmarked its own public commercial buildings first in 2013, before requiring privately owned building to do so. In 2014, the largest private commercial buildings were required to benchmark and report, but the city did not make their data public that year. This allowed low-performing buildings to improve their building efficiency. The same was done for smaller-sized buildings, allowing the city and the buildings to learn together how to best run a benchmarking program with enough assistance available to the buildings. Next, please. As this one shows, Minneapolis is not alone in energy benchmarking. Many cities across the country are passing benchmarking and transparency policies, as well as requiring buildings to conduct energy audits. And you can see from this, many other metro cities are also participating in the benchmarking program, like the St. Louis Park, Edina, and also St. Paul. So in addition to adding multifamily buildings to the city's benchmarking policy in 2019, the city also added an energy evaluation component to its policy. The energy evaluation requires building managers to provide proof that they are high-performing buildings through their benchmarking results, or else they receive an energy evaluation every 5 years. The energy evaluation will provide recommendations for how to improve their building's efficiency. All buildings in the energy benchmarking program need to comply energy evaluation requirement. The picture above here shows a multifamily residential building located on Franklin Avenue. This building has approximately 50 units in it. Next one, please. Unlike the commercial buildings, the city has taken a phase-in approach with the multifamily residential building, starting with the largest buildings and allowing them a grace period of 1 year before their data becomes public. This year, 2020, buildings with area 100,000 square feet and over will have their data become transparent because they already benchmarked their building in 2019. So this is their second year, and their data will be publicly released for the first time. So in the process, the city does allow for buildings to file for a 45-day extension if needed. However, given the COVID-19 crisis, we will accept extensions for delays caused by the pandemic. Otherwise, if a building is under 50,000 square feet, the building can file for an exemption, permanent exemption request. If the building is in financial distress or any property that are under 50% occupancy during the calendar year, or the property does not have a certificate of occupancy for all the months of the reporting year, they can also apply for a temporary exemption. To find the extensions or exemption form, visit the city's website, fill out the form and just email it to us. And here is the address of our website. And we will also share this address in the chat box, so you have a link there. So I'll go over a little bit more to the energy evaluation component. These are the details of the energy evaluation policy. All buildings must prove that they are high performing or otherwise get an energy evaluation audit every 5 years. I will note here that if there is no free option for buildings, the requirement will not be, if the no free option available, the requirement will not be enforced. Next one, please. And like the other policies, energy evaluation policy will also be phased in. Here you can see how the requirement will be enforced every 5 years based on the building size. So this year, 2020, larger commercial and multifamily buildings will go through that energy audit requirement or the energy evaluation requirement. And again, there are 4 pathways to comply to this energy evaluation requirement. Number 1 is performance-based. If the building earns Energy Star score that is in the top 75% score in the city, that means buildings are earning 75 or more, it's already a high-performing building, so the requirement is fulfilled. If the building is not eligible to receive an Energy Star score, but it is on the bottom quartile of the EUI, which also indicates it's a high-performing building, and the requirement is fulfilled. The second way is certification. Qualifying green buildings, if they achieve a certification within the past 3 years, which can be Energy Star, LEED Gold or Platinum, Minnesota B3, or other acceptable certification, they're already good. Number 3 is the progress. Buildings can achieve a 20% or greater reduction in weather normalized EUI, energy use intensity over the 5 years, with the initial baseline of year 2020, and they are showing a progress towards the reduction, 20% reduction, they're all good. The requirement is fulfilled. And the last one is the energy evaluation. They can provide proof of an energy evaluation done within the past 5 years, and it is valid for 5 years. So, and that evaluation must meet the ASHRAE Level 1 standard, or it can be other utility offered accepted tune-up or recommissioning services. Again, the audit is valid for 5 years, and the audit must have a ASHRAE Level 1 or more standard based. And there should be recommendation how to improve the building's energy efficiency. So these are the 4 ways to comply the new requirement, energy evaluation requirement. So as I mentioned earlier, the requirement will not be enforced if there is no cost evaluation option available to the building owners. And this is a program offered by Centerpoint Energy, Multifamily Building Efficiency Program, which is no cost option available for the multifamily buildings this year. This program includes free installation of LEDs in common areas and units. Also, it does water saving measures. So multifamily building owners, if you're interested today, you can sign up and you can show your interest in the chat box, and Emma will contact you, or we will establish a connection with you and the CenterPoint Energy today. So recognizing that there is a need for the free commercial option, the city also offering a Building Energy Assistance Program, or the BEAP program, through the Center for Energy and Environment for buildings on the district energy. Because buildings on the district energy do not have an utility audit programs available to them. So this year, 2020, 10 buildings signed up for the BEAP program, are eligible for the BEAP program. And this is a free option. They will CEE, or Center for Energy and Environment, will lead the program. They will do the energy evaluation, which is a ASHRAE Level 1 audit, and they will also help the buildings to do the benchmarking, or I would say to make sure the buildings are already benchmarking, so they are doing it right, and then also report the evaluation data to the city. So in the summary, next one, please. Thank you. Here's the summary of all available options for energy evaluation offered by the utilities. CenterPoint Energy and Xcel Energy, the MFPE program, and then the other Xcel programs for commissioning turnkey services, or natural gas. So the MFPE is free, but the others are not absolutely free. They come with a slightly charged service. And also, as I mentioned earlier, properties can choose to do any third-party energy evaluation, and that just need to meet the ASHRAE Level 1 or greater standard, and they can pay their own for choosing to, if they choose to do that. But that will also count toward the city's energy evaluation requirement. And that ends the presentation of my part. So if you have any questions, anything, reach out to us. Thank you.
Yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. Otherwise, we'll keep on rolling. So I'm going to be talking about how benchmarking works, kind of give an overview basically of benchmarking and the pieces that go together to make it work. So as Nadia was talking about, benchmarking brings together two silos of information that have never been brought together before. The first silo of information is the meter consumption information. So usually that's, that's managed maybe by your accounting department or finance department, and that may be separate from where your building asset information is stored. And so that's why we think of these as kind of as silos. So that first silo with meter consumption information, that contains the electricity, gas, steam, chilled water, potable water, any of the delivered fuels, all of the consumption from energy and water of the building. The second silo includes things about the asset of the building, so the building characteristics, including building area, the building type, the schedules, occupancy, the year built, all those kind of high-level characteristics that describe the building. When we put those two silos of information together, we can get three high-level valuable metrics. The first one is the energy use intensity, measured in kBTUs per square foot per year. So this is the raw energy use divided by the area of the building. So this allows us to compare buildings of similar type to one another, but that may be different sizes. So for example, we can compare a school that is 50,000 square feet to a school that is 100,000 square feet and get a relative sense of their comparative performance. The second metric does one better, where it actually incorporates the energy use intensity, or EUI, as well as many of the other building characteristics. So it includes some analysis around the building type, the schedules, occupancy, year built, among a number of other factors that are kind of dependent upon the building type itself. And it puts those and normalizes them along a scale from 1 to 100. 1 being inefficient, 100 being efficient, and 50 being the national median. If a building earns a score of 75 or greater, it's seen as a very efficient building and can be recognized as such with an Energy Star certification. The last high-level metric is the water score, which is available for multi-family buildings. And similar to the Energy Star score, it's a 1 to 100 ranking, 1 being inefficient, 100 being efficient, 50 being in the national median, and gives a relative sense of water efficiency of the building. So what is kind of the purpose of benchmarking now that we've, once we have those 3 basic metrics, what is the value of that? Well, it helps you understand how buildings like yours are performing nationally. So with that Energy Star score, you can get a sense of, am I inefficient? Am I efficient compared to a lot of other buildings? It helps you prioritize buildings with the greatest potential of savings based on the EUI and score. Especially for those of you who have a portfolio of buildings and you're wondering where is the greatest opportunity for savings, you can basically look at a list, which one has the lowest Energy Star score, which one has the highest EUI, and which one has the lowest water score, prioritize those for further investigation and improvements. Benchmarking also helps you to develop a baseline and savings goal specific to your building for energy and water consumption. So as you benchmark over time, you can see where you are, where you were the first year, and match or baseline yourself to that. I know the goal for most folks is to see yourself decrease over time, so that helps you manage your energy costs and water costs. So benchmarking is really the first step towards sustainable, efficient energy management. As the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure, so that's very important. And then the other major benefit of benchmarking is that if you have a score of 75 or greater, like I was saying, your building is eligible for Energy Star certification, which studies have shown can actually show buildings that have that certification have shown to have higher occupancy rates as rental rates and property values when going for sale. So how does benchmarking generally fit in the overall management of a building? So kind of at the beginning, there needs to be a commitment from the property owners, building managers, to want to do something about energy use and water use in the building. And it can be motivated by cost. It can be motivated to receive that Energy Star score. Whatever the motivation is, that commitment is important. And then benchmarking helps, as I was mentioning earlier, helps to assess performance and set goals. So you can set that baseline, and we want to know how are we doing over time, and where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? Those are the types of goals that you can set. Once you've had those goals set, you can create an action plan specifically. So how are we going to reach that 5% reduction over 5 years? It might be, looking at our operations. The next part may be looking at our lighting and doing some capital upgrades there, and then going down the line. So once you create that action plan, you have to implement the action plan and do those retrofits, or just make those adjustments when it comes to operations. And then benchmarking comes in again once those upgrades or improvements have been done. It shows you, are those retrofits making a difference? Can you see that in the data? Hopefully, after you've made those improvements, it can be recognized for those achievements, either against your own baseline goal, or maybe you've made it into that, over that threshold of 75, a score of 75, and can get that certification. And then that kind of goes in a cyclical loop. So once it kind of becomes a self-motivating cycle, where once you see that you're saving energy, it's a fun game to try to keep that going and see those energy costs continue to come down. With the Minneapolis Energy Benchmarking Program, once you've submitted your data, we actually send out an annual scorecard. And the scorecard kind of gives you a snapshot of your benchmarking data. And this can be useful in communicating to others in your building what is happening regarding the energy and water performance of the building. So for those buildings that can earn an Energy Star score, and the majority of multifamily buildings can, it'll be listed there. as well as the EUI and the amount of water consumption. And then we give you some graphs to give some context to that. So for your type of building, we'll let you know where in Minneapolis along that EUI spectrum you sit compared to others. And then on the right-hand side, it's kind of the building trends over time with your energy and water use. You can see that this scorecard also helps us understand gaps in data. So for this building, it was clear that they were not full, like maybe there was a unit error or some other issue with the building, or just they weren't accounting for all the meters for water use. But clearly in 2015, 2016, either they were missing something, or on the other hand, in 2017, they added an extra digit to their water consumption, and you can see the gallons skyrocketed. Or maybe there's just a giant leak. So that's kind of the other value of benchmarking is it helps flag building issues at a high level without having to do constant go-arounds of the buildings to look for issues. As I was saying, the real goal of benchmarking is to bring savings, and the studies that we have looked at show that. So a study done by Energy Star Portfolio Manager about 10 years ago showed that buildings that consistently benchmarked over a period of 4 years saw around a 7% savings, and then also at the same time a 6-point increase in their Energy Star score. And that's kind of in line with what we're seeing in Minneapolis, and I think I'll show some of those, or actually Nadia showed that a little bit earlier, that over a 4-year period we saw about a 5.5% reduction in all of the buildings across the city. So just by knowing and being aware of the energy and water consumption of buildings, owners typically are taking advantage of that information and making changes. As I was mentioning, the marketplace is showing that they value energy efficiency. And we see that with the buildings that are Energy Star labeled, those that have been certified. So from a number of studies, there were 6 different studies that this kind of macro study looked at. And of those, they looked at the average premium percent, so above the average, that these Energy Star certified buildings received based on rental price, sales price, and occupancy rate. And you can see that the average premium can vary a lot, and that also changes based on the city. But that in general, this just goes to show that the market does value energy efficiency, and that building owners are rewarded from higher rental prices and sales prices, as well as occupancy rates for making their buildings more efficient. As I was mentioning from the Energy Star study, just by being aware and knowing the energy performance of the building, we see that building owners and operators typically take action. And we can see that from the overall energy reduction, but also from a study done by the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, who looked at the benchmarking program in New York. They saw that the majority of operators actually made changes because of having this benchmarking information. 77% of them reported making operational changes, and 75% of them reported investing in new equipment. And you can see the specific actions that they've taken there kind of vary, but generally, this is motivating folks to take action, because there's opportunity to save. So let's get into a little bit about the tool and how data flows a little bit. So as I've mentioned, we'll be using Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which is an EPA tool. It's free, and basically all of the 30+ cities around the country that have benchmarking policies use this tool. The other interesting stat is that about half of all commercial square footage in the United States is benchmarked in this tool. So it's seen as the national standard for benchmarking at a high level. So we'll go into the various tabs and pieces of it in a little bit. But basically what this tool allows you to do is to bring together those two silos of information. It allows you to measure performance of the building with some easy graphs. And it allows you to report your data submission to the city as a third party pathway. So how does the data flow? So I'm going to kind of focus us in here on the Energy Star Portfolio Manager platform here, this online platform. And the first goal is to get the information and data into it. So a building owner or manager enters in the building characteristics that can basically only be done manually unless you have, so some building owners we know use third-party tools that may already connect into Portfolio Manager, and so it's just a matter of kind of getting connection to that. And once that building characteristic information is in Portfolio Manager, the next step is putting in the utility information. And we are very fortunate in Minneapolis that Xcel and CenterPoint have developed these automatic data transfer tools, so that you do not have to enter that data manually, and you don't have to aggregate the data from multiple tenants. They do that for you. And so the data, what we'll be doing today is setting up that connection between the utility and Portfolio Manager so that that data flows automatically. Once all of the data is in Portfolio Manager, you as the building owner or manager need to take an active step. That's why we put this arrow in red to submit the data. So even though the data's, everything has been benchmarked in Portfolio Manager, the city does not know that until you have submitted it. So we'll talk about how you submit the data. Once that data has been submitted, in year one, the city does not make that data publicly available, but in year two, or starting in year two, the city will do so, and the data will be made publicly available on the city's website. So that's the end of the overview of benchmarking. Are there any questions? If not, then we're gonna go on our first 10-minute break. We're a little early here, and that's just fine. Why don't we come back at 8:55, and at that point, we'll start our guided work time. So feel free to refill your coffee cup, get some breakfast, take a bio break, anything you need, and we'll be back at 8:55. So there is a question, is this the same process for St. Paul as well? It is a very, very similar process. The only thing that's really different is the submission. You'll have a different submission link for St. Paul. And if you have, we're happy to connect you with the folks there to give you those resources. Oh, there was another question about, can smaller properties choose to use this tool as well? Yes, of course. You're more than welcome to use the tool. It's not required that you submit it to the city, but you may voluntarily do so and have your data displayed with the rest of the buildings. But the EPA tool, Energy Star tool, is it's free for anyone to use. Yes, Brady's even benchmarked his house. I do too. It's kind of fun. All right, it is 8:55. So as promised, we'll jump back in. And our next topic is the guided work time. So at this point, we're going to be walking through how to set up a property and portfolio manager. Then we're going to talk about how to enter water data into the system. We'll talk also next about how to submit the data. This is a little bit out of sequential order, but that'll be the last part that I'll be presenting, and then Xcel and Centerpoint will be presenting on their tools. So how to set up a property and portfolio manager. For those following along at home, if you want to open up a browser and open up a new tab, you can enter in this URL right here to get to Portfolio Manager. If you ever forget that, it's so easy to just Google Energy Star Portfolio Manager and it should be the top link. So I'm actually going to do that here. So I've gotten to the main page here, and if you do not yet have a portfolio manager account, you'll need to create a new account. So go ahead and click that button. Here you're going to enter very basic information, as we do all the time these days about setting up new accounts. So you create a username, a password, give contact information about yourself and your company, and that's basically it. For owners and managers, I would recommend trying to create a generic username, one that can be easily passed along in your company, as this work may transfer to other people. I see a question. So there's a question about how do you get the desktop to open a browser? You should be able to find maybe at the bottom of your screen. You should have either Chrome or Internet Explorer as little icons, and you should be able to click one of those to open it. And if you're not finding that, then Brady maybe can help you out.
Yeah, Katie, I might just quick chime in. I think if you are viewing it in full screen Zoom, you can press the escape button, and that could be a problem as well if you're not able to see the browser. Nita, just let us know if that helps.
Excellent, glad to hear it. So I'll give everyone a minute or so to fill out this. Once you get to the bottom here, where it's asking about your organization, sometimes people have questions about this last part. Is your organization an Energy Star partner? If you don't know, you probably are not. Once you have that completely filled out, you'll click the I'm not a robot and create my account. And then you should get an email from Energy Star to confirm your account. So once you've done that, you'll go to your email and click the link there to basically confirm your account, and you'll log in. So this is what the login screen looks like. You'll put in your username and password. We already did this part. And then you should be logged in. And you should get to this page. If folks have reached this part, if you wouldn't mind just putting that in the chat and say that you've, that yes, you're here, or no, you need more time. Excellent. Okay, I'm seeing lots of yeses. Perfect. Okay, so we'll keep going then. I want to kind of familiarize you all with the portfolio manager system. There's the portfolio view where you can see that there's these 4 tabs at the top: My Portfolio, Sharing, Reporting, and Recognition. For the most part, you'll be working in this My Portfolio tab. For the setup of the Xcel and Centerpoint tools, you'll be using the Sharing tab. And then for the submission process, you'll be using the Reporting tab. Here you see that this is where you can add a new property. So again, this is at the portfolio view. Under portfolio, you have properties. And you can see the list of properties here. So in this example, in the bottom right, there's a table that shows all of the properties, 14 of them that are associated with this account. This view gives you a high-level view of the energy use trends and greenhouse gas emissions trends, and I think you can change those metrics that you're viewing there. Another useful table here are the notifications. So this is especially important when you're setting up the Xcel and Centerpoint tools, because you'll need to know when you've connected with them and things like that. These notifications will also become available up here at the top. There should be another notifications kind of link that will have some, it'll have a flag on it if you have notifications. So like I said, this is the portfolio level view. Once you create a property, there will be a property level view. This property level view has 7 tabs going across the top. The summary tab, details tab, energy, water, waste and materials, goals and design. We're gonna really focus on these first 4. Energy Star does allow for the tracking and benchmarking of waste and materials, but that is not a part of the city's ordinance. So we will be focusing just on these 4 tabs. And this is basically how we navigate. If you ever get lost, it's easy to just go back to the My Portfolio tab, and you'll access any individual property from this bottom right table. So that's the basic navigation. Like I said, there's 4 portfolio level tabs, 7 property level tabs, and that's how you navigate in and out. So before we set up a property, we need to kind of understand the context of the properties. So the goal first is to establish the greatest granularity among buildings to yield the most useful benchmarking results. So really, what does that mean? We're basically trying to get to narrow down to buildings that don't share meters. That's the easiest way to put it. So buildings that share meters need to benchmark on the same property. And I'll give some diagrams to show what I'm meaning here. Buildings that do not share properties should be benchmarked on separate, buildings that do not share meters should be benchmarked on separate properties. And that's because we want to know and get down to the lowest level of granularity to understand the efficiency of that asset, as opposed to it being all aggregated with meters from non-related buildings. So what does this all mean kind of in practice? So I'm going to give you 3 examples here of a city parcel and 3 buildings on them, and how meters are shared and how they should be represented in Portfolio Manager. In this first case, my slide, the whole thing, I'm calling one city parcel. And on this slide, there are 3 buildings, buildings A, B, and C. And you can see that each building has its own separate gas, electric, and water meter. And in this case, then we would benchmark 3 different properties: property for building A, property for building B, and property for building C in Portfolio Manager. In the second case, we've got one city parcel, 3 buildings. Electric and gas meters are not shared, but the water meter is shared. This means that we actually need to benchmark all 3 buildings on one property because of that one water meter. We cannot disaggregate the use of this water meter unless you have sub-meters from one another, from these 3 buildings. And here's kind of a hybrid case where we have one city parcel, 3 buildings, and building C is very independent. It doesn't share any meters, but buildings A and B share 1 meter, and therefore these 2 buildings, buildings A and B, must benchmark as one property, and building C benchmark as a separate property. So I hope that makes it clear for establishing a property. So the next step is to add the first property. So at the bottom or the top left hand side of your screen, you should see this button, Add a Property. Once you do that, you'll be prompted to answer 3 basic things. What is your property type? And you'll select that from a drop-down menu. For most of you, it will just be a multifamily building. Typically, it's just a single building. For most buildings are very simple that way. If you do have one of those cases where buildings are sharing meters, you'll need to mark that as a campus and mark that there are multiple buildings on that property, and that will be that 3rd radio dial point. And then all of these buildings are existing, so you select the top one. After you've done that, you click the Get Started button. And you add in the basic details about the building. So you'll put in the building name, the location, the year built, the area. And for that area, something that is important to note there is to not include parking. We will be adding that in a separate location within the tool. And actually later on in this page. But for this gross floor area, do not include parking. The gross floor area encompasses all tenant spaces as well as common areas, as well as basements, attics, all of that. It's all of the enclosed conditioned space. You'll enter the remaining fields. Occupancy, that is thought of as the percent of the building. Essentially that is conditioned. That's another way to think of it. It's not just you know, from if you have tenants, if a couple of your units are vacant, that those are unoccupied in the traditional sense, but in the energy sense, they are still being heated and cooled. So we want to account for that. If you do have a basement, for example, that isn't conditioned, then you can take that out of the percent occupied. So I will also kind of go through this along with you. So you'll likely find that multifamily housing under lodging and residential. Something else to note is that only the questions with the red asterisks are required. Down at the bottom, there are these questions and you'll need to mark them as they apply. So whether or not your building has parking areas, a heated pool, retail stores, restaurants, or has assisted care units, please mark them here. I'm going to mark that I have parking and then I'm going to have a pool. Once you click continue, then you'll end up on a page like this. So this is where you'll add additional details for each property type. So my building use is multifamily housing. Here, my gross floor area should be already pre-populated. Every one of these rows or these metrics here that have a star by them are necessary for calculating the Energy Star score, so make sure to enter them here. If you don't happen to know the answers to these questions offhand right now, you can select use the default, and the default is kind of calculated based on the square footage that you've put in. And you can use that as the default for now, and when you find that information, you can come back and change it later. So most of you probably know the number of units in your building. So for 100,000 square foot building, I'm going to have 100 units. A confusing part often is this number of residential living units in a low, mid, and high-rise buildings or settings. So what this gets to is if you have a building that is basically not just a box, it has multiple tiers and different parts of the building. You want to account for the number of units in each section. So I'll explain that in an example. So for my example here, part of my building is 4 stories on one side, and the other side of the building is 8 stories. In that, the 4-story part of the building, I have 20 units. And in the 8-story side of the building, I've got the remaining units. And so that is how you need to break down the amount of units there. I have 0 in the high number of units, and then the next part is adding the number of bedrooms. It's good to try to enter in the rest of these as you're able. It helps refine the data. So for percent heated and cooled, usually for Minnesota, all of our buildings are heated. And in this case, I'm going to say that the majority of my building is cooled as well. For the building use, or for other building uses, so I marked that I have a pool and that I have a parking use. So I'm going to select the type of pool that I've got. So your typical kind of like hotel size pool would be 20 by 15 yards. It'll be an indoor pool, and since it's indoor, it's used 12 months of the year. For parking, this is also where we often get some questions. So there are 3 types of parking that are available. I just saw that we have a question. What should I put if there are 1 and 2 bedroom units? You'll want to count the full number of units. So as you can see here, in my example, I've got 100 units, but I'm counting that some of those units are 1 bedroom and some of them are 2 bedroom, which would mean that I've got a total number of bedrooms that is going to be greater than that. So this number will likely be different than this number. Great. All right, so continuing back onto the parking, as I was saying, there's 3 different types of parking available. There's the open lot, there's the partially enclosed lot, so you can think of like a ramp that has the open sides, and then there's the completely enclosed parking garage. So those are the ones that are fully conditioned, and oftentimes they're underground, things like that. So in here, you're going to put in the square footage of the parking area that is relevant for you, and then zeros in for the ones that you do that are not relevant to you. So in my case, I'm going to say that I have 50,000 square feet, got a really big parking garage underneath my building, and then I've got 0 square feet for, actually that is very large. I'm going to make that 30,000. And then zeros for the other pieces. If any of those spaces are heated, make sure to check that. And actually, no, I'm going to say that that is not heated. So those are the majority of or I guess those are the basics of the property use types. If you have another use in your building, and say, for example, you didn't mark initially that there's a retail store or a restaurant, like on the first floor of your building, here's another opportunity to add that. So kind of from the top of your screen, underneath the first box, you'll see this drop-down menu of add another use type. And you can add that as applicable here. So I'm going to try to find the retail, where here I've got a retail store. I'm going to add that. And under this retail use, I'm going to fill in the applicable pieces. So here it's looking for my gross floor area for the weekly operating hours. You want to generally count the times that it's open is the best way to classify that. So it's open from 7, this retail store is open from 8 to 8 each day. So that's 12 hours for 7 days a week. That's 84. Number of workers on the main shift. You can either use the default or maybe you know offhand. This is a retail store that doesn't have food, so there's no freezers, is what I'm going to say. It's just a single store. And yes, it has an exterior entrance to the public. This space is also heated and cooled. There's a couple of computers there. There's a cash register. Does not have any cooking. So, oh, it's saying that. Uh-oh. All right, I clicked back. Okay, well, I've already entered these things. Hopefully you guys are moving along just fine here. And we'll get back to the presentation. So we've already talked about occupancy. We've already talked about parking. You selected the statements that apply. All right. So hopefully by now you guys have entered in the basic building characteristics of your property. If you have, can you please say that either yes or I'm here, I'm back to this page in the chat. Excellent, you guys are very speedy. We'll keep going then. So on this property summary tab, I do want to familiarize you with what is there. Let me get back to this. And I'll go to an existing building. So important things to know about on this summary tab. In the top right, you'll see the basic or high level performance characteristics, either the Energy Star score if you're available, or if that is available to your building type, or EUI, which is available to all building types. So there is a question about cooling. You do want to mark cooling that is window unit as well. So spaces that have window unit ACs also count that as in that percent cooled. So getting back to kind of the summary tab and what's available here. So again, high level metric at the top right. It compares your current to whatever baseline that you've set. On the left here, you see the trends over time. And then your metric summary table allows you to again see many more of those metrics that are available. My building is not available or cannot earn an Energy Star score due to its size, and it's a triplex. It gives the site EUI. Okay. Sounds good. So we've talked about how there are multiple ways to get data into Portfolio Manager. There's manual entry, spreadsheet upload, and automatic data upload. On the energy tab, we're actually going to add that initial electric meter, and we'll just walk you through that. This add a meter process is the same basically across the board for both energy and water. So click over to that energy tab and then add a meter. That next page, we're going to add just the electric meter for now. So disregard that natural gas component, because the Centerpoint tool will automatically create the meters for you. On the electric side, you likely have are purchasing that electricity from the grid. So go ahead and click that box. If you do have on-site solar, click that box. Let us know if you do have on-site solar. There are some other further questions we'll have to talk with you about to make sure it's set up correctly. If you have any delivered fuels, please mark them, or district fuels, please mark them right now as well. And you'll need to put in the appropriate number of meters for each one. But again, do not put in gas at this point. Oops. If the screen is prompting you to add your water usage right now, go ahead and click that as appropriate. You likely have municipally supplied potable water and click the number of meters. On the next page, you'll basically see a table of the meters that you just created. So for these specific meters, you'll need to choose the units and the date the meter became active. So we're going to do that together. I'm going to add a meter, add electric, purchase from grid, and I'm also going to add a steam meter. So for the district steam, that's going to be measured in KLBS. The date meter became active at this point. You kind of just need to put in an arbitrary date in the last couple of years for the electric meter. For the steam or any other delivered fuels, those will actually, that start date should line up with the first start date that you have of the bills that you'll have available. So for the district steam and any delivered fuels, you'll need to enter those manually. And so you'll need your either paper bills, or if you have online access to those, you'll need to align that first read date of those bills here. For the electric grid meter, you're going to click the kilowatt hours as your units, and the date meter became active. As I was saying, this can kind of be more arbitrary. Since we're going to be benchmarking the year 2019, I'm going to try to encompass that year. In many cases, your bills and your start and end date will not directly align with a calendar year. And that's okay. We just need to make sure that the full calendar year 2019 is accounted for. So in many cases, you'll need to have readings that start in December of 2018 and go through parts of January 2020 to get the entire calendar year. So once I've put in that information, excuse me, you'll click next. For that district, if you have any district steam, chilled water, or delivered fuels, you can start adding them in here. I'll just show you how that works, but we won't take too much time on this right now because not as many folks have that. But to manually enter this data for steam, chilled water, delivered fuels, you'll just put in your start date, enter that here. 12/15/2018. My end date is usually a month later, and I've got 60,000 pounds of steam. The cost is optional to enter in. There's value, if there is value to you in tracking that information here, you can. The city does not collect any data on cost. So that is purely your choice and your benefit. To add another entry, simply click that plus button or add another entry, and then the next line will start to fill in. So you'll keep entering those in. If you make a mistake, you can check the box on the top, on the left, and then select delete selected entries. So you'll see these triangles located next to the name of each meter. To see more details of them or close them, you just click the triangle itself. For your electric grid meter, we will not need to enter anything in here manually. That will come in through the Xcel tool. So we'll just close that up and we'll hit continue. This next step is important to account for all of the meters in your building. So you can see this building actually already had some meters associated with it. And these were the two kind of dummy meters that I created. So I'm actually not going to count them towards my, my full energy consumption. But for most of you, you'll need all of these boxes clicked, and you'll need this first radio dial clicked to show that these meters account for the total energy consumption of the triplex. We'll get to that natural gas part in a second, and then you'll hit apply selections. So this is because I'm already connected to Xcel. And so it's asking me other questions. So you should have at least set up an electric meter, if nothing else. And you won't see any data here yet because data is not yet flowing. But you now know how to enter those how to set up a meter. And just wanted to come back to this to make note that the units that will be needed for each one of these is kWh for electric, steam is KLBS, chilled water is measured in ton hours, and water is measured in CCF, which we'll be doing next. Okay. I'm kind of skip through some of these slides. All right. The next thing I want to get into is the water data, how to set up a water meter. So we're going to actively do this together. So go ahead and click that water tab and click add a meter. Here it'll ask you what type of water meter you have, whether it's indoor, outdoor, or mixed indoor-outdoor. A lot of folks end up having that mixed, and that's just fine. How do you get back to those tabs? Great question. Here, I'll show you in the in the browser itself. So if you ever get lost, feel free to just click that Portfolio Manager logo. That'll take you to the My Portfolio tab. And then you can click your building from the list of properties. To navigate to the water tab, you click that fourth tab over. All right, then there's a question about what if I don't know if it's what type of potable water? So typically, this is the easy way to answer this is, do you have any irrigation on site, and do you have like an outdoor spigot? And if there's just one water meter for the building and you do have either irrigation or some outside spigots, then you would click indoor, mixed indoor-outdoor. If you know that you have two water meters on your city water bill, likely one is indoor and one is outdoor, unless you have a fire meter, which the fire meter usually only has consumption of one. So it's basically negligible and we will not be tracking that. But for most buildings, it's safe to say it's mixed indoor outdoor. I hope that answers your question. Okay, good. So I'm going to select one mixed indoor outdoor meter. What's important here is to click the units. And in Minneapolis, the water consumption is measured in CCF, or 100 cubic feet. And the date meter became active. This again will line up with the first meter reading that you have available. If you have those bills right in front of you right now, you can enter that in. If you don't, it's fine to just enter in a placeholder for now. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll create the meters. So here is where we enter the water meter data. To do that, to get our data, we can go to the city's water billing website. So I've got some slides on this. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to go to, you're going to open up a new tab. And you're going to type in this address. And Brady, maybe you can put that into the chat. It's also available up here in my browser right now. And I see a question from Anita. If you have a fire line, don't add it. That is correct. Do not add fire lines. They are, there's no consumption, so they're not worth tracking. All right, so once we're on the city's water billing website, you'll kind of go down to the middle where it says online account access. You'll click that. If you happen to know your username and password for your account, you can enter that here. If you don't have that, that's totally fine. You can find your water account either with the account number that's available on one of your bills or through the service address. And the service address, again, what the city has on file for your water meter may be different than what you know as the postal address for your building. So keep that in mind. The best way to search for your building or for your water meter account is with this account number. And again, if you have any questions about this, feel free to put in the chat. So once you log in, you should see something like this where it displays your consumption. And what we want to go to is your billed usage. So we're going to try to download the water consumption data. Okay. Got a question, but I can't get past the login info screen. So if you're here, oh, I'm logged in, so log out. If you go to the standard access, using your bills, you can enter in an account number, and if you don't have one of those, you can try to enter the service address. If you aren't able to log in right now, just hang tight and we'll try to get to you at 11 o'clock and help you walk through those more detailed questions and troubleshoot with you. So hang tight and at least try to follow along to understand the process. And yeah. So once we're in, as I said, you're going to be clicking that build usage. And you'll see that the consumption history is displayed over time. And that's the information that we're trying to get. Because if we can download that into a spreadsheet, we can transfer that data over into a portfolio manager spreadsheet and then upload that. So you'll click up here, this download button. And now we're going to put that information into this upload spreadsheet. All right, so what does that all mean? So I'm going to download my data. It's thinking. Oh, I need to log back in.
Katie, we have a question if you could do that one more time.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to log in. And I'm going to go to the build usage on the left-hand side. And you'll be able to check that you have consumption here. That is important. If you don't have any consumption here, you'll want to check a few other water meters and then select a water meter and make sure it has consumption, because your fire line, for example, might be displaying. Once you see consumption here, you'll click that download button. And that will display in a spreadsheet. So once I've downloaded my data, you should see something like this, where each month I've got a reading, shows me my current reading, my usage, and the cost. This usage and these dates are going to be the most important for our purposes. So we now have our data. We need to, we're going to now copy paste this data into an upload template. So to access that upload template, it's either in your email, or we can just do it from the website. Oops, all right. So in Portfolio Manager, you can go back to your Portfolio Manager screen here. And what we are trying to do is upload the data in bulk for this meter. If you cursor down here, you'll see use this single meter upload template, or spreadsheet template. Download that. I'm going to open that. And we are going to populate this spreadsheet. So Energy Star is looking for a start date, end date, usage, and whether or not it's an estimated value. So I did see that there was a question of what do I do if there's an estimated value? We'll actually be able to mark either yes or no if it's an estimated value. So I'm going to go to my data. I'm first going to take my usage in CCF. I'm just going to copy that, the numbers, hit Control C. I'm going to jump back over to the upload template and paste that there. And I want to make sure I'm just pasting the values. So if you click at that little control, you'll see, click that values, the little 1, 2, 3. Next, we need to enter in the dates. So the dates in the Minneapolis water billing data, these are all end dates. So I'm going to copy that, Control C. I'm going to move over to my upload template, and I'm going to Control V. I'm going to paste that there. And I'm also just going to paste the values. So again, that's hitting that control button and clicking values. All right, for this next part, we're going to define the start dates. So each end date is the start date for the next meter reading. So in this case, I'm going to highlight this starting in the second row, basically. and highlight all the way down. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it in the first row of my start dates. So you can then see that my start date is a month before my end date, which makes sense. It appears that my meter is typically read on the 11th of the month, and that would indicate to me that the start date for this this very first reading, or last in the list here, it would be 4/11/2018. All right. If I look back at my water data that was provided from the city, I need to know if it was an actual reading or an estimation. It says here that it was an actual reading. So when I get to this estimation column, I'm going to click no, it is not an estimation. And if that applies to all of them, I can just kind of click this bottom right-hand corner and drag it down. Once that is populated, I'm going to save this. I just have this basically saved in my downloads folder. It's a temporary thing, and I don't need, I only need it this one time. So there was a question about, can't I just upload this directly into Portfolio Manager? And the answer is unfortunately not. So Portfolio Manager needs the data to come into its system in a certain format, and that format is this template. So it's kind of like square peg, round hole. The city, or the Energy Star Portfolio Manager is the round hole, and the city's data is a square peg. And so we need to chop away that square peg to make it round. And that's what we're doing here by copy and pasting the data over. And you can add in the cost information as you'd like. So once I have that saved, I'm going to go back into Portfolio Manager, and I'm going to upload my file. So I had this in my downloads, and it should be my very first one. Usually is called Meter Consumption Data Spreadsheet. And I will open that. Then click Upload. And if everything works well, then suddenly you have this beautiful table of data. Yep, and I'll give you a couple minutes here to work on it. So it's always good to kind of double check anything that's coming in here. If you have yellow or red, either exclamation points or boxes that are showing up here, that indicates that there's some type of error, and let us know if you're seeing those. We can mark that down, and we'll address those in kind of the breakout time at 11. So once all my data looks good, the next thing I need to do is click Continue. See a blank line at the top. Crystal, can you elaborate more on your question there? The blank line at the top.
There's just a date that went in there blank. So how do I delete that?
Okay. Yeah, let's go back to that. I'm gonna apply selections. Fine. I'll get back to that in a second. All right. So I'm gonna navigate back to my water. So this is actually a good exercise if you've saved everything, or if you've moved on and you're like, how do I get back? Here's how you get back. So you click on the water tab, and down below you should see your list of water meters. And which building is this? Okay. I just added this water meter. Wait, it should be this one. So if you have, so as I'm understanding it, you have something that's blank here. You can alter that by just double clicking on it and entering the date as it makes sense. If you don't need that row at all, you can click that checkbox, scroll all the way down, and delete selected entries.
Okay, thank you.
So in this case, when I went back to my water meter, it's giving me these kind of error boxes. And as I was mentioning, one of the key things is defining that original date that the meter became active. So I had put in an arbitrary date, but now I need to make sure that my first start date corresponds with this date meter became active. So I'm going to change this date meter became active to 4/11/2018 and save changes. I save changes once with that box, and then I scroll all the way down and I click save bills. And then everybody's happy. How did I get the start dates again? So from the data that you've entered here in the table, you should be able to see that by showing all years, and that first date in that first row, that's the date that you want to put in here.
Katie, I think that question might have been in regard to your spreadsheet.
Regard to the spread date sheet. Great. I can go over that again. Okay. So again, here's the data that I got from the city. These are the dates they gave me. These are all end dates. And I know that those are end dates, and I put them in to the upload template as end dates. The thing I also know is that the end date for one meter reading is the start date for the next. So that means that this end date of 4/11/2020 is also actually the start date for this meter reading. So if I copy paste this over to here, to my start date column, it then makes sense, right? I have a start date of 4/11, I have an end date of 5/11. So I could do that all the way going down, or I can just copy the whole thing and paste it here. Does that get at the question? Excellent. All right. So if you get stuck on that and need more help, again, we can help in that breakout time. But I would like to move on to the data submission and just show you all how to do that. So you're familiar with it when it comes time to do so. So you'll submit your data once you have your building characteristic information in, your energy data is in, and your water data is in. You'll submit via the reporting tab. And the reporting tab, again, is you find that at the top of your of the navigation bar in Portfolio Manager. Here, it kind of describes the things that you're seeing on the screen. There's some preset charts and graphs that you can develop. In the reporting tab, you can download performance documents. This is useful for getting that Energy Star certification. And down at the bottom is really where the majority of our work is going to happen. In this table, we're going to be generating reports and templates here. So to submit your data, you're going to select a link that is available on the city's website. This is the submission link that is unique for each benchmarking year. I'll say that again. So the submission link is unique to each benchmarking year. And so each year you'll need to, it'll either say in your notice from the city that that you need to benchmark, that link will be in there, and it will be on the city's website. So you'll scroll down to where it says submit, and you'll click that 2018 data request link. Go ahead and do that. We'll walk through the steps. You just won't fully submit the data. So go ahead and click that, and it will, here, it'll bring you to this website. Oh, where is submit? Okay. It now looks a little bit different. Websites update a little bit. So here underneath how to submit benchmarking data, you're going to click this 2019 data request link. It will open Portfolio Manager. And you should see something like this. It gives you some instructions as well as some important information about the ordinance. You'll scroll down. This is where you have to take action. The time frame is already selected for you. What you need to select are the number of properties that you'll be submitting. Okay, slow down, can't find the website. Okay, so the website is in the chat box. It should look like this. On the city's website here, underneath the second blue bar, item 3, 2019 data request link. And again, these slides will be available, we'll have slides available that show these processes after this. Can I get some yeses if people have made it here? You can put that in the chat. Okay, great, thank you. So we're here. We're going to select the number of properties. If you're only submitting in Minneapolis and you're submitting all your buildings, you can select all properties. If you only need, maybe you have some smaller buildings that you're tracking. Yes, and that's fine. It's fine if you don't have your properties all in there yet. We're just going through the process, but we will not actually submit. So this is just a practice. So once you select, or once you know which properties you need to benchmark, you can select that from the list. So I'm just going to select a couple. And I scroll down, I hit apply selection. For most of you, it'll be all properties. Now I'm going to generate a response preview. Basically says that a preview of my response is being generated. When I scroll down, again, like I was saying, the majority of our actions is going to be in this table. So you can see here the 2019 benchmarking request is my top row. If I want to see what I'm submitting to the city, I can click this drop-down menu with the actions or with where it says I want to, and I can preview my response by clicking that here. And this will show me what data I'm submitting to the city. So you can see here, it's got my basic property information. I've got property notes, which I'll show you where you can use that in a second. Occupancy, a lot of the data, you can see that this is not finished, so I can't, I shouldn't submit yet. And then the high level energy metrics. So once I know, you know, I can see that. I don't have to see this, but it just is for your information. I'm going to close that and go back to my reporting tab. When I scroll down again, I'm going to look for this 2019 report. to actually submit, and don't worry, we'll stop you before you actually submit it. You're going to click this send response from the drop-down menu. And if I have errors in my data, which you will right now because it's not fully, you haven't fully put in your information, that's fine. Anyway, it's just going to, this is an example. It shows you that the system flags when your data is incomplete, and that should be helpful. If I want to submit anyway, and we're just going to do this for practice, click send response. This is basically the final page that you'll need to do any work on to submit your data. You'll answer these 3 questions. Who besides you should we send confirmation email to? So if you have a supervisor or a boss or whomever that needs to send this, or needs to know that you've submitted the data and that that you're complying with the city's ordinance, you can select that. Select people here who are already who already have accounts with Portfolio Manager. If they don't have a Portfolio Manager account, you can just add their email address here. I would recommend just keeping that in Excel format. And then this last part, it's important to click this checkbox that says, I hereby certify that I am releasing my data about my properties to the City of Minneapolis. You need to enter your username and password and click e-sign response. The page will refresh. You'll scroll back down and you'll see this green check mark that says that you've signed, and then you'll click send data. So do not send data right now because it's incomplete, but that is the process. After you send the data, you'll get an automatic email from Portfolio Manager that says that you've submitted your data, and a short while after that, you'll receive confirmation, probably within a week or 2, from the city confirming the receipt of the data. So that is the submission process. So again, it's going to the city's website to find that unique link that changes for each benchmarking year. You click that submit, it brings you to Portfolio Manager. You need to select the number of buildings. You generate that response preview. You address any errors that are necessary. You can preview the response if you would like, but otherwise just click send response. Answer the 3 questions. Certify that you are releasing this data to the city. You send the response and send it. So with that, I know that was kind of a lot of information. You guys are hanging in there, really appreciate it. We're running just slightly behind, so we're gonna just take a 5-minute break, and like a 7-minute break. We'll come back at 10:05. So feel free to get,
I was just gonna say, before we break, I wanted to just let everybody know that we'll send out the slides. So if you're like, help, we're going so fast, we'll be sending those out. So.
Thank you, Brady. All right, so yeah, feel free to take a break, get some coffee, check your email, whatever you need, and we'll be back at 10:05 to talk about the Xcel automatic data transfer tool. All right, everyone. Hopefully you guys are back and feel a little bit more refreshed. So the next part of the training is setting up the automatic electric data upload from Xcel Energy using their Xcel Energy benchmarking services. So I'm actually going to turn over the presentation to Patrick Schmitz from Xcel, who will lead you through.
Thanks, Katie. All right, can you see my slides?
Yes, you're not presenting them yet, though. We just see the workspace. There we go.
Cool. Yeah, everyone, this is Patrick Schmitz from Xcel Energy. I'm the program manager for the benchmarking program there. I'll be presenting how to get a data connection to Xcel Energy's benchmarking program for an automatic whole building data upload. All the information about our program can be found at xcelenergy.com/energy benchmarking. You can download our user guide there, as well as you can see our email, benchmarking@xcelenergy.com, with a whole team to assist you with any problems or questions you might have. On the user guide, we're actually going to start on step 4, if you have it. There is a link in there on step 4. You can jump into our portal. Otherwise, on the slide displayed right now, you can see the xcelenergy.forest.com/benchmarking. If everyone can go to that site and sign up for an Xcel Energy benchmarking account. And I can actually demo this today. So this is our user guide. Again, you can click on the link right there. And this is the page that it'll bring you to. Just gonna hit the sign up.
Pat?
Yeah.
Your audio is a little, it's going in and out. Is there anything you can do to improve that?
I can go call in if that helps.
Yeah, that might. Yes, that may be better.
Patrick,
So.
I can send that to you in just a second.
Okay, sounds good. I'll go grab my headset.
Okay. So thanks everyone. Just hold on tight for a quick minute and we'll try to work on that audio quality.
Patrick, I just sent it to you.
Okay, via email or chat?
Yeah, email.
Okay.
Pat, if you're having trouble, you should be able to click on your mute button. There's a drop-down menu and switch to phone audio.
How's that working?
Yes, that sounds better. Okay.
Awesome. Sound quality is good?
Yes. I will stop sharing and
Cool.
you can take over again.
All right. Hopefully everyone got signed up here on our Xcel Energy web portal. The key thing here is your email address that you're putting in. That'll be your login information, and it'll also be the username we reference later in the next couple steps. So moving on to step 5 in the user guide, you're going to be back in the Energy Star Portfolio Manager account, which is where you started. In there in the upper right-hand corner, there's going to be a contacts button. You're going to hit Add Contact on the next page. And there should be 4 search fields available there. We're going to search under the third one, which is the username. We're going to search for Xcel Energy Web Services. Once the Xcel Energy Web Services user shows up, you should be able to hit connect, and it'll bring up the screenshot on the presentation right now, asking for your Xcel Energy portal username, which again is the email address that you used to sign up on the previous step. Accept our terms of use and hit send connection request. And I'll run through on Portfolio Manager where to find those things quick. In your Portfolio Manager screen, here in the upper right, you can see the contacts button. And as it's loading here, you can see this is the Add Contact button here. We have a lot of contacts, so it takes a while to load. So hitting the Add Contact button, this is the field where you're going to search Xcel Energy Web Services. It won't show up on this search because I'm on that account, but your search results would show up here to add the contact. And so usually this would be set at running every 30 minutes or so. Today we have it running a little faster. All of your connection requests will show up as pending underneath this notifications tab in Portfolio Manager. Once our system accepts your connection request, you will receive an email from us saying that your connection request has been successful. So I'll give everybody a few minutes to complete this step, and then we'll move on to the property sharing step.
Patrick, quick question. If you just registered for the Xcel Energy Web Services tool, when should you expect to get an email confirmation?
So if you signed up in our portal via to step 4 successfully. You will get an email from signing up to ask you to create a password. But as soon as you are done signing up here, you should be able to move right on to step 5. After you've added Xcel Energy Web Services as a contact, entered your username, it should be about like 5 or 10 minutes today before you receive an email saying you've successfully connected. And again, you can also monitor, you'll have outgoing requests here in the notifications button in Portfolio Manager. You'll see an outgoing request to Xcel Energy Web Services if you had one. I can monitor here for incoming ones as well. I didn't see any yet. So I think we'll give everybody a few minutes to get that task completed. Let me know if you have any questions.
Pat, this may actually be a good time for us to also add, or for folks to add CenterPoint as a contact while they're waiting for
Sure.
that. So I can show that real quick.
All right, I'll stop sharing.
And Pat, you do have a question from Anita in the chat.
Okay.
So let's answer that question first before I move over.
Yeah, so you just completed step 4 on the user guide, Anita, and you'll be moving on to step 5, which is what I just finished going over in the presentation. So step 5 in the user guide, we're going to go, I'll just demo it here again. In Portfolio Manager, in the upper right-hand corner, there's this contacts button up here. You hit that contacts button. You're going to hit the add contact. And again, mine takes a minute to load. Add contact button. And the third search field here in the find contact in Portfolio Manager section, you're going to search for Xcel Energy Web Services.
I'm doing right now, but I'm still on the Xcel website.
On this page?
I've done that, and then now I've done the submit, and I got the email that came to me to set up the password, and that's where I'm at.
Yep. So you're done with setting up your account in our system now.
Okay.
And the steps I was just going through are the next thing. So once your account's set up here, you're done with our web portal until in the future, if you want to check, which accounts or meters or premises are being aggregated together. Otherwise, you won't need to do anything else in our portal.
So from this point, I need to just go back to the Energy Star portfolio.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Would you like me to continue this part of the demo again, or do you got it?
Let me get there and then I'll see.
Okay.
And
sounds good.
I can take it from here because the next thing is to add the CenterPoint contact as well. So it's a very similar process. So I'm going to share my screen.
Good.
So kind of as Pat was demoing, we're going to be adding a contact for Xcel and CenterPoint. So I'm going to go at the top right of the screen and hit contacts. On that next screen, you'll click Add a Contact. And this is where you either enter the Xcel or the Centerpoint. So once you've done Xcel, then you're good. And you're ready for Centerpoint. For Centerpoints, you're going to search for the name Centerpoint Energy with a space between Centerpoint and Energy. When you click search, this is the account or that you should find, and you'll hit connect to connect with them. For Xcel, what's different is that you're entering, into this username field, Xcel Energy Web Services. So, sometimes it's helpful to copy and paste the names of that you're searching in there, especially for Xcels. So if you copy paste what I've put into the chat, that should work. Once you've hit connect for both of those, then click to accept the terms and conditions and send connection request.
And Katie, this is Emma from Centerpoint. We're just accepting these live right now, so the connection should be accepted pretty immediately.
Great.
From Centerpoint.
So I'm going to exit back out of that. In your portfolio manager, you should get notifications once those connections have been made. So if I go up to my notifications in my portfolio manager tab, you'll likely have outgoing requests if those haven't yet been accepted. But if they have been, then you'll have these notices. If you have received these notifications of the connection being accepted from either Xcel or Centerpoint, can you put that into the chat? So yes, Xcel and Centerpoint, or just Centerpoint, or just Xcel. Okay. Okay.
I definitely see 4 or 5 up there pending right now for Xcel Energy. So.
Energy Star notifications, but as a separate tab, where do I go for gas? So you should just be clicking on those notifications at the top, and then you have, so all your electric and natural gas notifications will come through the same system, same path. And it'll be, you should be able to view them in one of these 3 tabs of incoming requests, outgoing requests, or notices. If anything is pending, they'll be sitting in this kind of out box. And if things have been completed, you'll have these notices. Okay, so people are getting their Xcel. That's good to hear. So once you have Xcel, then you're ready to add Centerpoint. So you go back up to that contacts. You click Add a Contact. Type in Centerpoint Energy and search. It won't come up for me because I'm already friended or connected. Brady, can you maybe help M. Kennedy?
Yeah, Kelsey, do you want to put me in a breakout room?
Yep, just a moment.
Pat, Pat, how does it look for you on the pendings?
Looks like all the ones that were pending have been cleared. So everyone that's shared has been accepted.
Okay, that's great. I do see another question of, will I need to add all of the properties before connecting to Xcel and CenterPoint? The answer is no. You can connect to Xcel and CenterPoint now. And as you add more properties, we'll be able to deal with those. But for now, let's add, you're essentially friending Xcel and CenterPoint. Okay, since most people, since there's no more pending, and I saw a lot of yeses to CenterPoints, then Pat, you want to continue?
There we go. Can you guys hear me okay again?
Yes, can hear you.
Awesome.
But I'm not seeing
Alrighty.
your screen. Okay, now we are.
Yeah, I forgot to unmute on there. Alrighty, so once you successfully connected to Xcel Energy Web Services as a contact and portfolio manager, you're able to share your property with Xcel Energy. In order to do that, again, operating from the Energy Star Portfolio Manager, we're going to go to the Sharing tab. You can see on the display right now, and you hit Share or Edit Access to a property. So on the next screen, you're going to see something like the screenshot on the right. You're going to select one property, usually to start. You can do multiples if you'd like, but I find it easier to do them one at a time. So drop down one property, and then on the right, you can select from the list of properties you have available. In this case, I had TLS test. You're going to select Xcel Energy under who you want to share it with. And then the permissions down at the bottom, you're going to click Personalize Sharing and Exchange Data, and then hit the Continue button.
Hi, Brady.
Hey, is it Mary?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Mary. Do you want to do in the bottom, the control bar, there's a little share screen?
Yep.
Share what you have and you can take a look.
Okay, so you can see from, can you see this screen here?
Yep, yep.
So I have notifications, and then I have Energy Star notifications as a separate.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, just go into just the general notifications.
Okay, so now I'm not sure, because I.
Can you check outgoing?
Okay, so I'm not sure, as I was trying to catch up with you guys, I don't know if this is the one I want to connect to.
Okay, let's see what's under notices.
Okay.
Good, so you got CenterPoint. So could you in the top right corner go to contacts? Looks like we're gonna have to try with Xcel. So add a contact, yep. Under username, try clicking to Xcel Energy and then search. Crazy, huh? This does not usually happen.
Well, I'm feeling a lot better because I was getting really going, why am I not seeing this?
Let me see.
Well, part of me is I think that this was already set up for me at one point
Okay.
last year, and but I should still be able to see it.
Yeah, here I'm gonna request. If I could request control, that means I can click on things
Oh,
and be
okay.
able to quickly see. Just gonna go in here one more time in case. That is the craziest thing. I don't know why I don't see. There they are. I don't know why that changed things. Did you, I think this is your email that you used to register for the portal.
It's probably M. Kennedy.
Awesome. This just says, can I share data with you?
Okay.
So we send it over. Now under notifications, we see the outgoing. In the meantime, I'm gonna try to get you ahead of the group so that when we rejoin, hopefully we're kind of at the same spot.
Okay.
How many properties do you?
It's just one property. I don't know why I'm in there twice, but
I'll just say all, even though you only have one, and then we got that. This is a one-time thing, so I don't think it's a problem if I do this for you.
okay.
These must be the energy meters for this property.
Right.
These don't really matter. Share forward. I don't think you need to do that. Let me do the same thing here. No. Share. And then we wait to see if Xcel has.
Okay, I'll check my email, see if I have something. No, nothing yet.
Maybe let's just go back and we'll see.
Okay.
So that's good. We see that Xcel Energy has been sent. We're just waiting on them to accept it. So it's an odd thing. It's sort of like you friend them on Facebook. It's like what I imagine it as. And then you have to say like, I want to exchange the data so that they can send the data into your account.
Okay.
Are sort of the two steps.
Okay.
It's a big uphill battle, so of learning. So thanks for sticking with us.
No problem.
Just gonna keep pressing this to just see. That's a good sign.
There, sweet.
Connected to Xcel, so we'll go back into sharing. Sharing it at Access. Gonna share, oops, let's do all properties. Now we're sharing with Xcel. We're personalizing the settings. So personal. Here we go. So here's the same email that you used before. And then It's like a multiple choice test.
Yeah.
All right, or like voting. There we go. Okay.
All righty.
So I think you should be all good to go. Where
Excellent.
Xcel does all the data stuff for you, and then we're going to work with CenterPoint next to log into their portal. And since we already set it up in Energy Star, it should just go right in there. So
Okay. Great.
you want to, let's see. If you want to, at the bottom right corner, you could say leave the room and then rejoin the main meeting. I'll see you in there shortly.
So go ahead and grab a copy of your bill before we get started. So here's an overview of the high-level steps of what we'll be doing during the session. First, you've already created your property. You've already connected with CenterPoint Energy. We're going to go back into Portfolio Manager first and share the property with CenterPoint Energy, kind of like you just did for Xcel. Then we're going to register for the tool and add, if you have multiple CenterPoint Energy accounts for the property, or if you have multiple properties, we're going to add all of your CenterPoint Energy accounts. From there, we're going to be creating the request for the aggregated data for the property, which will allow any energy use data that for bills that your tenants pay. If you have tenants, that will be included in that aggregated property. And then finally, we'll be pushing the data from the CenterPoint tool to Energy Star Portfolio Manager today. So again, hopefully by the end of this session, you will have all of your CenterPoint Energy data in Portfolio Manager ready to go. So this will be in the presentation. It's some of the useful links I just showed you. From there, I'm going to jump into a live demo. Any questions so far, just chat. So first, we'll be doing that property share step. So from the sharing, you're going to go to Portfolio Manager. This is basically exactly what you just did for Xcel Energy. We just need to share the property with CenterPoint now. So in Portfolio Manager, you're going to go to the Sharing tab, click Share or Edit Access to a Property. You can do one or multiple properties. You're going to select the property, and you're going to, you've all had your CenterPoint Energy contact request already accepted, so you should be seeing CenterPoint Energy listed in the drop-down here. Click CenterPoint Energy, choose below that, Personalized Sharing and Exchange Data. Click Continue. From there, again, click that radio button for full access. You probably will not have this exchange data column already selected, so select it, and that will bring up this window that will allow you to provide full access. You're going to click full access for each of the options in this list. If you have gas meters on the property, I guess I should mention here that another difference between the Xcel tool and the CenterPoint tool is that the CenterPoint tool will create a meter for you, a natural gas meter for you when you transfer the data. So that's why we haven't set up in this session a natural gas meter for the property, because it will be created for you in the process. If you, for whatever reason, have natural gas meters already on the property, you can go ahead and give full access to that for CenterPoint as well. It helps us with customer service. If other issues arise, we can kind of see what's going on. So again, full access for all the options on this screen. And similar to Xcel, we do not need this share forward capability. So you can click no, and then you'll click the confirmation at the bottom, and then click on share properties back on this screen. So I'll give folks a moment to finish that process. Why don't you chat when you've done that successfully, or if it would be helpful for me to run through that again, I can do that.
Emma, we've got one person wondering maybe if you could do that one more time.
Sure, thank you. I'm popping out the chat thing as well. Okay, so one more time, you're in Portfolio Manager, go to the Sharing tab, click Share or Edit Access to a Property. Select the property that you're working on to benchmark, select one property, and then select that property from the drop-down list below it. You're going to be sharing this with CenterPoint Energy this time. Under Choose Permissions, you're going to select Personalized Sharing and Exchange Data. Click Continue. From there, for your property, you're going to click up at the top, Full Access, and then under the Exchange Data column, select that button as well for the property. For all the options on this screen, you're going to click Full Access for everything listed. And for Share Forward, you can click No. And then you're going to click the confirmation button at the bottom, and then finally click Share again at the bottom of that screen. So looks like some folks are done with that. Does anybody need more time? Okay, hearing nothing, I will move on to the next step. So you're done in Portfolio Manager for the time being. The share request will be automatically accepted at a later step when you transfer the data from the CenterPoint tool to Portfolio Manager. Okay, so the next step is to register for the Energy Data Portal. We're on step 2 in the user guide. We're going to register for the portal using one of your CenterPoint Energy accounts, and then we are going to add all of the CenterPoint Energy accounts that you pay for the building if you have multiple accounts. So that's what we're working on next. So for this step, you're going to go to the portal, the CenterPoint Energy portal. The URL is shown here, and maybe somebody could chat. Yep, it's out there. So energydataportal.centerpointenergy.com. Once you are on the site, you're going to click on, well, before we do that, I'm going to show you, you're going to need information from your bill to complete this step. So in our user guide that I'm showing right now, there are some example bills that show you where to find that information on your bill. You're going to need your account number, the number from your service address. Those are both at the top of your bill for most bills. And you're going to need your customer name, and the best, most reliable place to find that is on the address box at the bottom of your bill. You may have a different type of bill, which is called a summary bill. It looks a little bit different. It has a list of multiple accounts. If you have that, the information is going to be in a slightly different place. You'll know it's a summary bill because the account number at the top will say 8,000 something, followed by a bunch of numbers. And the account information for those you're going to grab from the list of multiple accounts that are shown on the bill. Most people will probably have this this single account bill where there's just one account per one bill, but be aware that the information may be in different places depending on what type of bill you have. Okay, so we can come back to that if people are having trouble finding the information on the bill, but if you have the bill in front of you, you can go, you should be at the CenterPoint tool already. You're going to click on register. That will open this form that you will use to register for the tool. So as I've said a few times now, you're going to need the information from your bill to register here. That goes in the street number, customer name, and account number fields. There's a few special instructions for how to enter this bill. It needs to be entered exactly as it is on your bill because this is how we're verifying that you have the authority to access this information. So the street number, that's going to come from the service address, usually at the top of your bill. You're going to enter just the number from the service address. So in this case, the service address is 311 Walnut Street, or on the other bill, the other type of bill, it's shown in a slightly different place. And so we're going to enter just 311. The customer name, again, that's going to be from the address portion of your bill at the bottom, and you need to enter it exactly as it appears on there. So that's going to be Moe's Tavern. And the account number comes from either the top of your bill, if you have the single account style bill, or if you have the other style of bill, you don't use the account number at the top, you use the account number shown in the list of multiple accounts. And that account number needs to be added only the numbers before the dash, not the dash or number after the dash. So these are the special instructions up here. It's important that you follow those, otherwise it won't work. So this was something like 311, 3113 or something. You're also gonna tell us your first name, your last name, your email address. That will be, the email address will be what you use to log in. Choose a password and a secret question. Accept the terms and conditions. And I will give everyone a few minutes to do that step. So Dennis says he has a name doesn't match. Brady says make sure it's exactly like it is on your bill. It is very sensitive. So, and then as Mark says, if you still can't do it after kind of re-verifying, we'll be able to help you in a breakout room. Has anybody been able to successfully register? I'll show you what happens when you register. Dennis asks, is it because one of my teammates is associated with this account? It shouldn't matter. The username, as long as you have the correct information from the bill, you'll be able to register even if somebody has already registered with that account. Once you get in, it will load a screen like this where you see the energy usage. And yes, people could just give a shout when they've successfully done it, or I can demonstrate that again. Mezzo manager is done, that's great. Again, if you are Can't connect. I don't have a bill in front of me, but I'm online and can get account number. Okay. So Crystal will probably have to help you in a breakout room. You can try to, yeah, you will need a bill to be able to get in. Dennis, name does not match our record. So yeah, Dennis, maybe even right now you could go with Mark in a breakout room to get set up. Could somebody arrange that?
Kelsey?
And then you can come back.
On it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So far, Metso is the only one who's in. Is there anybody else that can confirm that they're in? Mill City Quarters in, great. If you are having trouble, again, just make sure that you are following the instructions in red for each of the fields here. So we'll wait one more minute, but then in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next steps and we can help folks in the breakout rooms. The rest of the steps are go quick. So once you're in, that's the hardest part, or to get in, that's the most sensitive part.
So at this point, since Emma's done with her presentation, I know we already have some folks in breakout rooms, and if you need help, could you please put in the chat box what you need help with, whether it's the Excel tool, Centerpoint tool. If you still need help on setting up your properties, then we can make sure that you get set up with some assistance. Okay.
Okay. For those who are in, Katie, there's a couple more steps that I haven't demoed yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So
hold my thought.
But it does make sense for those who are having issues even getting into the tool. It's probably a pretty quick troubleshooting thing to help them in a breakout room and they can come back. So I will move on right now for those. There are a few people that are in, and the rest of you will help you in a breakout room. Okay, so once you're in the tool, those of you who are in, do you have multiple accounts at the building, CenterPoint Energy accounts? I'll just show you. Okay, so yes. So the next part of this step is to just make sure that all of your accounts are added. For that, you're going to take those other bills from your additional CenterPoint Energy accounts, and you're going to enter those 3 factors again. So you're going to click on this Authenticate Now button that you should see at the top of your screen. And there it's going to ask for those 3 pieces of information. So you're going to type that in, again, following those special instructions. And once you've done that, you're going to scroll to the bottom and click Add Account. If you do it right, there'll be a green box at the top. Good. Okay, Mezzo Manager, very good question. And the question is, if there's units and they have gas that they pay, do you need to add it here? The answer is no. This step is only for the bills that you pay, for commercial accounts or house meters that you pay. The rest of the data will be accounted for at the next step. So only the accounts that are in the property owner or property manager's name. All right, Dennis is all good. Dennis, if you have additional accounts at the building, we're adding those additional accounts now. If you only have one account or meter at the building, then you're all set, and we'll get to the next step. So for those of you who have multiple accounts, again, make sure those are all verified here in this Authenticate Now button. You're going to do that for each of your additional accounts. From there, once you've done that, the next step is to step 3 in our user guide, which is requesting the aggregated data for the building. This is where if you do have tenants at your building that pay their own natural gas, their energy usage will get bundled in at this step. So to do this aggregated data request, you're going to click on Initiate Request at the top of the screen. Oh no, did my internet go out again?
No, at least you're
Well,
still connected to the video.
Okay, that's promising. All right, good. There we go. All right, so you're going to click on that Initiate Request button. That's going to bring up this window. You're going to give the building a friendly name. I suggest this, I'm going to be doing a multifamily building. I'm going to call this Test Multifamily Building. I suggest you put something on there indicating that it's the combined data. And for me, I'm going to do a date here. Below the building name field, you're going to see a list of available service addresses that are associated with the accounts that you have added. Typically in a multifamily building or a commercial building, if you have tenants, typically those tenant accounts will be under the same service address. So what you want to do at this step is add any relevant service addresses that are associated with the building that you are benchmarking. So for this one, we're going to do the apartment, and in this case, there's a small school in the bottom of the apartment. So your building may be just one service address, or it may span multiple. You're just going to, from this list, select any service address that is associated with the building. Those will show up down on this list where you're kind of building the property using the service addresses. After that, you're going to go down to this, my relationship to this building is, select your relationship. I think most people on this call are building owners or property managers, which will require no further permission. You're going to click Submit after that, and this is an important step. It brings up a screen of all of the units / meters. They're typically one and the same, you know, a unit. If a unit is individually metered, if tenants pay their own gas, typically they'll be the same number of meters as units. So this step will display all of the meters that are contained in the aggregated building that you have requested. Your job at this step is to verify that the number of meters is what you expect based on what you know about the building. So for Mezzo Manager, if your tenants pay the gas you should be seeing more or less the same number of meters as you have units in the building, plus any house meters. So, and you'll see them listed in this screen. If it all looks good, you can click submit. If it doesn't look good, you have the option at this point to go back, and maybe you missed a service address from the list. If it still doesn't look right, we can help you in the breakout room. But if it all looks good, you're going to scroll to the bottom and click submit. The tool is going to think for a little bit as it crunches the numbers. What it's doing right now is aggregating all of the data from all of the meters at the building. And when it's done, it's going to display the aggregated usage. And your property that you just created will show up in this property list. And these are buildings that I've created previously. We can ignore them. You can verify what was included in that property by clicking this edit, and it will show that list again if you ever need to go back and double check. You can just click cancel to get out of there. All right, so now you have created your property. Does anybody have questions about this step before I move on? If no immediate questions, we can help you in the breakout room. All right, I will move on to the next and final step. From here, you're going to be transferring your data to Portfolio Manager. To do this, make sure that the building that you just created is selected in the Select Property dropdown. So you click on Select Property and make sure that there's a check mark next to the building that you just created with the name that you gave it. Once it's selected, you click on this Property tab underneath. Underneath this Energy Star Portfolio Manager icon, click this Use Existing Account slider. It's going to bring up a window, a pop-up window that asks for the property ID. This means the Energy Star Portfolio Manager property ID. So hopefully you still have your Portfolio Manager open, but you're going to go to your property in Portfolio Manager that is, represents the building that you just created in the CenterPoint portal. And you're going to grab the property ID. You can find it if you're on this screen. It's this number below the property name. You would, if you're on the property page, it shows up underneath the building name here, Portfolio Manager property ID. So you can just copy and paste that, go back to the Energy Data Portal, plop it in there, click Submit. That will bring another pop-up window where you can confirm that it's the correct target building. So this is my multifamily building and I want it, it's 123 Apartment Lane. If it all looks good, click yes. That will bring up this is just a summary of the data that it's going to send. It's sending data going back to any available data for the building back to April of 2016 will be sent to the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. From there, click Submit. This step is very important. The screen appears frozen right now. It's not frozen, it's just thinking. And this step can take a little bit of time. The important thing is to not mess with it while it's doing this step. it's possible if you click somewhere or refresh the screen that the transfer will get interrupted. There's a way to fix it if you do it, but the best thing right now is to just be patient. Eventually the screen will just reload, and that's when you know that the data has been transferred. So I will leave it here until that reload happens. I do want to wait for that, Katie, just to show what you should be able to see afterwards in Portfolio Manager. So we're going to give it a moment here. And my internet is being slow today, so this may take extra long. Any questions while we're waiting here? Has anybody successfully gotten to this step? Great, good job, Mill City Quarter. M. Kennedy is good. Aha, I should have mentioned that Mezzo Manager. There is a possibility that when you created your aggregated property that you will require consent from a tenant. If you have a tenant, if you don't have tenants, it means that you may have an additional account that you need to authenticate, but Mezzo Manager, I think you said that you do have tenants. So what this means is one of the tenants has possibly used a lot of usage in a given month and is tripping our, it's called our data aggregation threshold. It's basically our privacy rules for releasing this data. We can walk you through what to do for that in a breakout room. You will need to get consent from that tenant. And that can be done through the tool. Okay, so if you're looking at my screen, it just finally refreshed. You'll see it pop back to this property tab, and you'll see this green slider is clicked over to the right. What you'll do from there is just double check in Portfolio Manager that everything looks good. So you're going to go to that property tab in Portfolio Manager. You're probably going to need to refresh the screen and go to the Energy tab for that building, and you will see if the transfer wasn't interrupted, you will see a new natural gas meter that has the same name as the name that you gave the property back in the portal. So I had test multifamily building combined. And you should see a most recent bill date that is, you know, in the last month or two. So if you see that, then everything has been transferred. If there's anyone who is switching over to this tool from a previous method of benchmarking, if you already have natural gas data, you will need to account for any double counting, and we can help you do that in a breakout room. And that is it, Katie.
Okay, sorry for cutting you off earlier.
That's okay.
So I have written down two people who had previously mentioned that they were needing help and just wanted to double check. I had that T Hill was looking for some electric help. And then Crystal Bank, you had mentioned help needing help with your property and property info and Centerpoint. Looks like Anita also needs some Centerpoint help. So T Hill and Crystal, if you wouldn't mind just confirming that those are still relevant. Okay, D Piper also needs some water help. Okay, great. So let's